When you hear CIA, you might picture spies and gadgets, but the reality is far more complex. For decades, the CIA has been an invisible hand, shaping world events from the shadows, toppling governments, fueling conflicts, and redrawing borders. These aren't just conspiracy theories, they're documented, declassified operations that changed the course of history. Tonight we're pulling back the curtain on the CIA's most secretive and chilling missions, actions that still echo across the globe. We'll explore how covert power can move empires, trigger chaos, and leave lasting scars. This is the story of the CIA's true influence, often more shocking than fiction. Our journey begins in Iran, 1953. Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh nationalized Iran's oil, angering Britain and alarming the US, fearing Soviet influence. The CIA launched Operation Ajax to overthrow Mossadegh. Kermit Roosevelt Jr. led the mission, using cash, propaganda, and bribery to destabilize the government. The CIA spread misinformation, paid off officials, and incited unrest in the streets. The Shah, initially hesitant, was convinced his throne depended on Mossadegh's removal. After days of chaos, Mossadegh was ousted. The Shah returned with absolute power, backed by the US Western control over oil was restored, and the CIA saw covert regime change as a viable tool. But the cost was immense. Iranian democracy was crushed, and resentment toward the US grew. This anger simmered for decades, fueling the 1979 Islamic Revolution and transforming Iran into a fierce adversary. Operation Ajax didn't just change Iran, it reshaped the Middle East and US-Iran relations for generations. The coup's legacy is a stark warning about the long-term consequences of foreign intervention. What seemed like a quick victory became a source of enduring conflict and mistrust. The CIA's success in Iran set a precedent for future covert actions worldwide. But the human and political costs were far greater than anyone in Langley imagined. The shadow of 1953 still looms over the region. Sometimes the invisible hand leaves a permanent mark. 1961. The Cold War heats up as Fidel Castro's Cuba aligns with the Soviet Union just 90 miles from Florida. The CIA, confident after Iran, plans a covert invasion, the Bay of Pigs. Cuban exiles, trained and armed by the CIA, land on Cuban shores, expecting a popular uprising. But Castro's forces are ready. The invasion is met with fierce resistance. Promised US air support is scaled back, leaving the exiles stranded. The hoped-for uprising never comes. Instead, Cubans rally around Castro. In 3 days, the operation collapses, hundreds killed, over 1,000 captured. The Bay of Pigs is a humiliating defeat for the US and a propaganda win for Castro and the Soviets. The fiasco exposes the limits of covert power and the dangers of flawed intelligence. It pushes Cuba closer to the USSR, setting the stage for the Cuban Missile Crisis. The Kennedy administration is shaken. CIA leaders are forced out. The lesson: covert action can backfire spectacularly, with global consequences. The ghosts of the Bay of Pigs still haunt US-Cuban relations. Sometimes the invisible hand slips, and the world feels the impact. The CIA's confidence is shaken, but the appetite for covert action remains. The stakes and the risks only grow. Enter Project MKUltra, the CIA's quest for mind control at the height of Cold War paranoia. Scientists, often unwitting, experimented with hypnosis, sensory deprivation, and especially LSD, sometimes on unsuspecting citizens. The goal: break and reprogram minds for interrogation or sabotage. The results were disastrous: psychological trauma, ruined lives, and even death. When MKUltra was exposed in the 1970s, public outrage erupted, revealing a rogue agency trampling civil liberties. MKUltra remains a chilling reminder of how fear and unchecked power can lead to moral catastrophe. As World War II ended, the US raced the Soviets to recruit Nazi scientists through Operation Paperclip. Men like Werner von Braun, who built rockets with slave labor, were brought to America, their pasts sanitized. Over 1,600 German scientists and families were given new lives and key roles in US research and NASA. Their expertise fueled the space race and Cold War tech, but at a moral cost. War crimes were overlooked for scientific gain. Operation Paperclip forced America to weigh progress against justice. The moon landing might not have happened without them, but the ethical price was steep. Sometimes victory in the Cold War meant making deals with the devil. 1970s Chile. Salvador Allende, a Marxist, is democratically elected, promising sweeping reforms. Washington sees a threat, another domino in the Cold War. The CIA is ordered to destabilize Allende's government funding opposition, spreading propaganda, and crippling the economy. Behind the scenes, the agency encourages a military coup. On September 11, 1973, General Pinochet seizes power. Allende dies in the presidential palace. The aftermath is brutal, thousands imprisoned, tortured, or killed. Chile's democracy is extinguished for nearly 2 decades. The CIA's role is undeniable. Documents confirm extensive efforts to undermine Allende. The coup becomes a symbol of Cold War realpolitik overriding democratic ideals. U.S. intervention left deep scars and a legacy of repression. The Chilean experiment in socialism was crushed, not by its people but by foreign hands. The lesson: covert action can destroy hope as easily as it topples regimes. The cost of intervention is measured in lost lives and lost freedoms. The shadow of 1973 still hangs over Chile. The late 1960s. America is in turmoil, rocked by protests and civil rights movements. Fearing foreign influence, the CIA launches Operation Chaos, turning its surveillance inward. Agents infiltrate anti-war and civil rights groups, compiling files on hundreds of thousands of Americans. The operation violates the CIA's charter and civil liberties, but continues for years. No evidence of foreign control is found. The dissent is homegrown. When exposed, chaos sparks outrage and congressional investigations. The scandal reveals the dangers of unchecked intelligence power. Even in a democracy, the line between security and repression can vanish. 1. The Soviet Union invades Afghanistan. The CIA sees a chance to bleed Moscow through Operation Cyclone. Billions in weapons and training flow to the Afghan Mujahideen, funneled through Pakistan's ISI. Stinger missiles turn the tide, downing Soviet helicopters and forcing a costly stalemate. The Soviets withdraw in defeat, a Cold War victory for the CIA. But the aftermath is chaos, civil war, the rise of the Taliban, and a haven for extremists like Osama bin Laden. The weapons and fighters the CIA empowered become tomorrow's threat. Operation Cyclone's blowback is profound, a lesson in unintended consequences. The victory in Afghanistan helped end the Soviet Empire but sowed the seeds for future conflict. Covert action can win battles but lose the peace. The cost of intervention is still being paid. Assassination, perhaps the CIA's most controversial tool. During the Cold War, the agency plotted to kill leaders like Fidel Castro and Patrice Lumumba, using everything from poison to mafia hitmen. Most plots failed or backfired, creating martyrs and fueling anti-American sentiment. The Church Committee exposed these operations, leading to a presidential ban on political assassinations. Yet, the legacy lingers, raising questions about morality, legality, and the true limits of covert power. Assassination often proved a desperate substitute for diplomacy. The stain on the CIA's reputation endures. The line between security and lawlessness is perilously thin. After World War II, NATO and the CIA prepared for a possible Soviet invasion by creating secret, stay-behind armies, Operation Gladio. Hidden cells, arms caches, and guerrilla plans spanned Western Europe, ready to resist occupation. But in some countries, these networks became entangled with extremists and implicated in domestic terrorism. Gladio's existence, revealed in 1990, shocked Europe and raised questions about democracy and oversight. Critics argue the network sometimes interfered in domestic politics, undermining leftist parties. The full extent of CIA involvement remains debated. Gladio is a chilling example of how far governments will go in the name of security. The shadow war sometimes turned inward. After 9/11, the CIA's role changed dramatically. Secret prisons, enhanced interrogation, and extraordinary rendition became standard. Suspects were held in black sites, subjected to torture, and denied legal rights. The aim: extract intelligence to prevent future attacks. But the methods sparked global outrage and debate over legality and morality. Many experts argue torture produced little reliable intelligence and damaged America's reputation. The Senate's 2014 report exposed the program's brutality and failures. The legacy is a painful reckoning with the costs of fear-driven policy. In the war on terror, the CIA's invisible hand left deep controversial scars. From Tehran to black sites, the CIA's covert actions have shaped the world, often at a steep human and moral cost. These operations weren't isolated, they formed a pattern of intervention that still shapes global politics and fuels distrust. The line between security and ambition is blurred, leaving a legacy of conflict and resentment. Understanding these hidden histories is crucial to making sense of today's world. Which mission shocked you most? Let us know in the comments. And subscribe for more untold stories. The invisible hand is always at work, the truth is still being written.